Hello and welcome to SuperOK, where we try to do a decent enough job to entertain people with our opinions on video games. My name is Dale, and as always, I am joined here by one of my absolute favorite humans on the planet, and that's Gannon. Gannon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. You know, I'm here to fill in as the bottom of the barrel. He couldn't get anyone else, so you know who's here today? This guy. And the listeners, they're so excited. They're like, "Oh shit, I thought he wasn't on these episodes anymore. He's been on too much. What the fuck is happening?"
No,
but here I am.
That's not fair to you, and it's also not true. You're not bottom of the barrel. That's definitely redacted. It reminds me, there used to be there's a strip club in the Detroit area called Deja Vu.
Yes, and my sister worked at it.
Really?
Not at the one in Detroit.
All right.
Yeah.
And their sign said 29 dancers and one ugly one. But you don't know who the ugly one is. Shit's ridiculous. All right. We like to start every episode of this video game podcast with a highlight of our week, a thing that made our week a little bit better, a little bit brighter, a little bit nicer. Why don't you go first?
All right. So, I mean, we're recording this post Christmas. So Christmas was just a blast at the house. Charlie is just at the perfect age where all the magic's there. She's so excited about Santa coming and eating the cookies and eating the reindeer, having their carrots and drinking the milk and all that stuff. So she was super excited about Christmas. She was super excited about her presents. She got a bike this year from her uncle, so we've been working on learning how to ride a bike with some training wheels.
That's awesome.
So that's been really fun, and Jack is just having a blast being Jack. I mean, he's happy with whatever, and Charlie wants most of his toys anyway because that's the way that she is at this point. So Jack's just happy with whatever's there, and Charlie is just happy running around
with everything.
Yeah. It's been great. And then from a video game perspective, I really have delved into Dragon's Dogma over the last few weeks, and it's been a blast. It's like the best best game I've ever played. There's some huge jank in it, but the game is so fun when I've just been really enjoying it. So it's been I've been playing on my Steam Deck and also on my computer, and both experiences are great.
Isn't that the game where the best strategy is like to throw a barrel at your opponent or some crazy shit?
You can throw exploding barrels on it, and it does have some weird glitches with barrels, so you can get through doors you're not supposed to if you like stack them on top of each other. It's the Reddit loves to be like, it's the only game where you can get sent to the moon on a cow, because like you can climb onto monsters and one of the spells is like a ginormous twister. And when I'm talking ginormous, I'm talking like huge, like looks like you should be flying, like it should be in the movie Twister. And you cast a spell, and if you're like climbing on the cow, it will like launch you into space. It's pretty hilarious.
That sounds perfect. That sounds like 100% my kind of jank.
Yeah.
I know you've been playing Dragon's Dogma for a while. How close are you to finishing it?
So that's the weird thing with this game, right? Is I am level 83. I've beaten the story once through, but there's a reason to play through the story multiple times. I'm now playing on hard mode, so all the experience is doubled and more money and stuff. I haven't really touched the DLC. Level cap's 200 and I'm 83, I think.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
But like, you don't have to get to 200, but I may continue to play and just do through some of the DLCs. The DLC area you should play through it 3 times too, because it has different paths and different endings. So I'm excited to see how hard it gets and what happens. I'm having a lot of fun.
Nice. You gotta love it when they add that, like they build in the replayability. Like they're like, hey, we want people to get a lot of value out of this content. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So I'm going to share 2 highlights of the week. One also video game themed, which is a game that I have just been thinking about constantly. I haven't been playing it a ton, but I've been thinking about it constantly. And it's a game called Cinna 2 Nerdle, which I discovered by watching a streamer. And basically, the premise of this game is every day you start out with 2 different movies. You'll start with either one of them, right? And then what you have to do is name a different movie that also has an actor that was in the first one. So, for instance, if the movie is, and I'm going to take this from real life experience, Apocalypse Now, which has Martin Sheen in it, you could go to Hot Shots Part 2, which also has Martin Sheen in it. And then you can go from Hot Shots Part 2 to any other movie that stars anyone who's in it, which most people use Charlie Sheen. So you can go to any Charlie Sheen movie, right? And so on and so forth. The twist to it is the way you win is it's a one-on-one battle, and the way that you win is by the other person not being able to name a movie that stars someone who's in the movie you're in. But you can only use actors and directors, and any given actor or director can only be named 3 times. So, for instance, you can't just go back and forth on all the different Martin Sheen movies, because we all know all the Martin Sheen movies, right? That would be too easy. So you can only use 3. Nobody knows. Nobody knows all the Martin Sheen movies. It's fine.
I just know him from West Wing, and that's not a movie.
Right, exactly. So I've been playing this a lot. It's one of those games that's fun to play by yourself, but really, really fun to play with a group of people, because it's like people are talking about the directions that they want to go in, and they'll be like, "Oh, I know the actor who's in that. Cool. What's another movie they're in? I don't know." And it's like, we just wasted 7 of our 20 seconds. Like it's just fun. It's panicked. It's a really good vibe. And it's free to play online. So you can check out Cinna 2 Nerdle Battle Edition. I would highly recommend it. And then the other highlight of my week was seeing the Iron Claw this week with my friends Both Sides and Joe. I haven't had a chance to just go out with them in a minute. It was great to just be able to go out, watch what is probably the saddest movie ever made by man. And then we went out afterwards for some tacos, and it was just a great evening overall. And so, it was wonderful. Thanks, Both Sides, for setting it up. I love you forever.
Iron Claw, that's like a true story about wrestling, right?
It is a true story about the Von Erich family, who is a famous, very, very famous wrestling family. If you know anything about wrestling, you probably have heard the name Von Erich, or you've heard the name the Texas Tornado, who one of the Von Erichs was. And yeah, it's just the story of all of their lives, because their dad was a wrestler. He had 5 sons. 4 of those sons became wrestlers. It was just a wild ride for all of them. And I don't want to spoil anything. It is not a comedy. Do not think that this movie is a comedy or that you will laugh or smile a single time.
How does it rate in like the wrestling movies? Like, it wasn't there the Mickey Rourke movie at one point?
Yeah,
that was really good.
The Wrestler, that was also kind of a bummer. It was good. This one's produced by A24, so it's definitely like an art. I don't want to say an art house, but it's got like an artsy vibe to it. It's a sad tale, but it's a very, very good story. If you are interested at all in like the saddest story of wrestling, you should watch this movie. If you are not, if you're like, hey, I want a fun, feel good wrestling movie, check out, I guess, Ready to Rumble. Like, The Wrestler is also not a feel good movie.
No, that's not a feel good movie either.
So yeah. Oh no, you know what? Watch No Holds Bars. That one's fun from beginning to end. Zeus is in it. Anyway, The actor who played Debo in Friday. I can't remember his name.
And you're really good at that Cinetonerdle game, huh?
Well, here's the thing. You don't need to know his name. You just need to know that the actor who played Debo in Friday was also in No Holds Barred with Hulk Hogan, who was also in Suburban Commando. You just need to make the links, man.
Just the links.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it was a great film, great time hanging out with people. And that leads directly into our main topic of today, which is the fact that it's been kind of a wild week, kind of a wild year end. I don't know about you, Gannon, but I am tired as hell. And so what I wanted to do was just maybe talk about some ideas that have been running around in my brain, maybe some news stories that we didn't hit on in 2023, and we'll do just a nice casual talk through of some of these things. What are your thoughts around that?
I generally do my best to not have too many thoughts, but I will give you my thoughts on the 3 subjects that we have agreed upon beforehand.
Oh, I love it. Pulling back the curtain just a little bit. So this first one was actually inspired by my evening with Both Sides of Joe, because after we watched the film, Both Sides and I went to a little coffee shop and we played a collectible card game that he is just, I believe Tubbs in the Discord described it as being dick deep in. Which is a game called Lorcana, which you actually in our previous episode described as a thing no one should get into. And then Both Sides immediately was like, I'm going to get into this. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on the game. We are both previous Magic the Gathering players. And so I wanted to see how you feel it compares with Magic. If it's the sort of thing that you're going to continue to play, that sort of stuff. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So first off, I think it's very important to say, like, I need to give my credentials before this, right? Like about where I'm coming from, because I think it will impact how I view this game. I'm a huge Disney person. I've always loved Disney. Something my wife and I, when we went on our honeymoon, we went to Disney World and on a Disney cruise. We're taking the kids there for the first time in a few weeks. Like it's something that means a lot to us. And something we care a lot about. So the IP of the whole game is something that we are already into very much. So, also, like you said, big card player, big Magic player. Played Wheel of Time, the card game. Like I've played a bunch of little weird ones along the way as well too. So for me, Lorcana, I want to make sure that I'm coming from this with telling you where my credentials are, why maybe the opinions that I've formed are. The first thing is, I am a huge Disney person. My wife and I, we went to Disney on our honeymoon. It's something that I think is very important to call out before I give my opinion on this. And I think that's where you and I may vary a little bit on where we're coming from. The game itself is a very approachable game. It has a lot of awesome things that it has pulled from Magic, but I think it has played with some nuance and some new things. Like we can talk about the win conditions and things that are different than Magic. And I think that the IP paired with the game being something that is approachable makes it a more fun experience for everybody, and makes it something that people like my wife, who's not like, she likes board games, but she didn't really fall in love with Magic. She's fallen in love with Lorcana because it's something that she can relate to, something that she really cares about. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So it's interesting that you call that out. I'm going to give my credentials now. I used to play Magic semi-professionally. I would travel for tournaments. It was something that I spent a good number of years where that was my primary hobby, my primary focus. And that's basically all I was doing with my free time. I also have played a myriad of other card games just like you. Overpower. I played Yu-Gi-Oh for a little while, played Pokemon for a little while. I've played the Versus system game, like all of those. I loved Netrunner. But unlike you, I don't give a shit about Disney. There are a bunch of Disney movies I haven't seen. When we went to Disney in Florida, whichever one that is, it's World or Land, I don't know. I wanted to do like all the rides because I love roller coasters, but I didn't really give a shit about the theming or like any of that stuff. Don't get me wrong, it was cool. I can appreciate it. I'm not a hater. I don't hate Disney, but it's just not something I'm passionate about, you know? And so to me, I agree with you. I think that this is a very simplistic card game. I also think that there is some complexity there. But realistically, I'm looking at Lorcana strictly from like, what is Lorcana as a Magic player? And it's basically like Magic for kids, right? Not Magic for babies. It's not like there's no strategy here, but it is definitely a simpler game. The timing rules are way easier to understand in that there are none. There's no way to interrupt what your opponent is doing. There's no way to react to a thing that they've done. It's you take your turn, then you watch them take their turn, and those turns are pretty non-interactive, right? There's no combat in the game in that it's like, oh, I'm gonna do my thing, and I have to worry about what you're going to do on my turn. But the things that I do on my turn change the actions that you can do on your turn, right? And so in the beginning of the game, what I found is that strategy really changes. Like, okay, sometimes you're going to want to attack your opponent's life total. I'm sorry. Sometimes you're going to want to quest to gain lore. So that way you have the ability to get lore and win the game. And then sometimes you're not going to want to do that because it leaves your characters vulnerable, because the combat is kind of Hearthstone-y in that way, in that you're not attacking your opponent's life total directly. You're sending them on a quest for lore, and instead of counting down from 20, you're counting up to 20.
I think that's a pretty big difference, though, right? That you are not sending, because even in Hearthstone, like you alluded to, you actually can attack the character. You can attack the creature. I can't remember what it is.
I think it is a big difference.
The hero.
I think I agree that it is a big difference thematically. Mechanically, it's identical, right? It's
not really, because it's a different power system completely, right? A card can have huge attack and only be able to generate one lore. It's a different system. It's going to make some cards worth more. Like there's cards like Christopher Robin, right? Where if it is, when it readies in the ready step, if you have two other creatures on the board, you gain 2 lore additionally, which has nothing to do with an attack focused game, right?
But you could hold on. You could do exactly the same thing in a Magic, which is, in your untap step, or I'm sorry, it's ready, set, draw in Lorcana. It's untap, upkeep, draw. So it would be like in your upkeep, if you have 2 other creatures, deal 2 damage to your opponent. Right? That's identical, right? The main place where it's different is that characters gain different amounts of lore than they have strength, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's essentially just like another stat line on a character. Again, from a mechanical difference standpoint, not very major. From a lore standpoint, from a crunch, from like the theming of the game, yes, I agree that that's a big deal. But as we've already said, I don't give a shit about the theming. I care about the crunch. And as a Magic player, it's like, all right, this thing has 2 power when it's attacking a creature, but 3 power when it's attacking the player, right? And that's the only difference there when it comes to how you think about the game, right? And the objective of like winning. Now, is that more fun for children? Yes. Is that more fun for people who care about the theming of Disney? I'm sure it is, right? But from a purely mechanical standpoint, doesn't really matter to me. What is really interesting is that characters can only be targeted in that Hearthstone style combat if they have been exhausted. And so that means that only characters that have attacked your opponent, or quested or attacked another character can then be attacked themselves. I think that is a really interesting gameplay mechanic. Not as interesting as the timing rules in Magic, but it's enough there that it gives it a little bit of strategy. Long story short, for me, I do not love Lorcana. I think it's a fun game. I will play it. If somebody comes to me with 2 decks and they're like, hey, you want to play some Lorcana? I'll play Lorcana any time of the day. I am not going to be investing in it. I'm not going to be buying a single card. There's no reason for me to do so. I don't know. Maybe I'll buy a box and sit on it for 10 years as an investment, but I have zero interest in like owning a deck and going to like start playing professionally or whatever, you know. Also, singles prices of Lorcana are like crazy right now because the game is so hard to get. It's like absolutely the worst possible time to try and start playing this game. And so of course both sides did immediately.
I mean, that was my point in the episode, in the gift buying episode, was don't get into it right now because it's very difficult to acquire things. Now the cards are becoming more readily available with the second printing, so I'm hoping the pricing does go down for singles, and I mean, you can find them in more places, but yeah, I mean, I think your criticisms of the game are fair criticisms. I think that it is, like I said, more approachable. Magic, especially like in our household, right? I've played Magic for 20 plus years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I understand the timing of the game. My wife does not necessarily have that experience with it. She has never really played anything like that. So it is a more difficult learning curve of something to get into. There are other board games that we've started like playing that have added those things in there. So I'm interested to see if we return to Magic, if that were something that she would enjoy. But I'm of the opinion that Lorcana is not, it is a fun game. Like you said, I'm not necessarily advocating for it to be on the same level as Magic, but I think it does still have a place. I don't think it's a game that it will necessarily go away. Like, I don't think it's
I
agree. I think it has enough meat there that it can last.
Yeah.
I think there are some cool mechanics that maybe I'm not familiar with. I really like the shift mechanic that they have in the game, which is because all the characters are the same character. Some characters you can play on top of a character of the same name. So like you can play Aurora Briarthorn first, and then you can play Aurora Dreaming Guardian, who's normally a 5 cost. You can only pay a 3 cost to get her out because you just play her on top of the other card. And then that card is no longer tied into like the whole where it has to dry, so it can't be played on that same turn. So if you have a card out, you can shift another card onto it and it can just take the actions right away. And I think there's some really cool deck building that you can build into that. And they have some really nice synergies. And from a thematic standpoint, like the 7 dwarfs all affect each other. Snow White also affects them as well too. The Evil Queen. Like I have an Evil Queen Snow White deck that's got a lot of fun interactions with each other. So
yeah, and that's the thing. Like they are nailing the lore. Like the lore of this is really, really solid. And yeah, that shift mechanic, which is basically like Pokemon evolutions. That's cool. My one major problem with the game is removal. Like characters in this game are so very important. And removal is so sparse that it's really easy to snowball. And if you're like mid game and your opponent is ahead, there's not a way for you to come back, right? There isn't a board wipe in the game. There's no like way for you to play control effectively. You have to play control from ahead as opposed to being able to play from behind.
Not necessarily true, and it may just be based on the decks that you've seen. There are cards that do damage to characters that are action cards.
Yeah.
And then there's also song cards that you can use, which are actions that can be played by exhausting a character of a greater power.
Yeah.
So there is some removal.
Oh, there's some removal, but I'm saying there's not like the only card that I've seen that can deal with massive amounts of characters is one that deals 2 damage to everything. It's like, that's not strong enough to warrant how much it costs, you know? The only card that I've seen that kills something outright is 5 cost, right? And it's like, that's pretty freaking expensive, you know? So if you're playing from behind, it's really hard to catch up. That's the point I'm trying to make. Also, man, I looked up while you were talking, I looked up some of the singles costs. The most expensive card is an Elsa that is $400, and it's an 8 drop. Like, this game is not Magic. This game is absolutely wild.
Yeah, we've had some fun with it. I'm excited to see what mechanics get brought out and see how the game changes, because there is even as they're pulling from other card games, there's a lot to pull from.
Yeah, that's very true. And like, to the point of the lore, there's a Mickey Mouse Wayward Sorcerer who's like $120 right now, and one of his abilities is that he makes all your broom characters cost 1 less. It's like, that's just funny.
Yeah, it's great. I have that card in that deck, and he's pretty great.
It's just ridiculous. So yeah, my final verdict on Lorcana is like, if you love Disney, get into it. If you're a previous Magic player, I would probably stick with Magic. Despite how fucked up Magic has been this year, I would probably stick with it. Yeah. What about you, Gannon?
My thought is that I don't think it has to be an either or thing. I think that they scratch different itches. If you like Magic, I think you can definitely like Lorcana if you are a Disney person. If you are going there solely for gameplay and complexity, no. But if you're looking for a new way to kind of build out decks and you really like the theming, like if you're like, hey, I really like what they're doing with Lord of the Rings and all these other themes that they've done with Magic recently, and you're like enjoying the theming and you enjoy Disney art, like the art of these cards is beautiful. We talked about it in the gift buying episode, which I'm just going to say it for those on the Discord, my lovely wife listened to, and she got me the Winnie the Pooh playmat, the Honeymancer playmat. I love it. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. But if you're looking for, like, if you're going to only choose one and you have no connection to Disney, I would play Magic. But if you only can choose one and you have a connection to Disney, I may say play Lorcana, just because if you have other people who are going to want to play with you. That's the other thing, is finding people to play with you is definitely going to be difficult for a bit.
Well, yes and no, because there's a way to play it online. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's like
Pixelborn. Yeah, Pixelborn. Yeah. That's not an official way though. So they have a Discord and everything. So it's just one DMCA strike away from it being all gone. Like, Lord Ravensburger should just hire whoever made it and turn that into a digital property, because it looks very good.
Yeah, that's true. Also, I looked at the card Winnie the Pooh Honey Wizard or whatever, Honeymancer, and it's like fine.
Yeah, the card's not great.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a 5/5 for 5, but like the art on it, real strong.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right, cool. We spent like the first half hour not talking about video games. So let's switch to a video game topic that I kind of wanted to talk about. And that's the fact that as of 2 days ago, Bobby Kotick is no longer a part of Activision, Blizzard, Microsoft, Pepsi, Taco Bell, KFC, Ford. Like, companies need to quit merging. Shit's ridiculous. But anyway, Bobby Kotick is gone, and that guy was an absolute scumfuck. So I'm pretty stoked on that. But I wanted to talk about what the implications of that are going to be on gaming moving forward, both for the industry and for like us as individuals, because both of us are pretty outspoken for our hatred of Bobby Kotick. So I kind of wanted to chat about that a little bit. So first off, I want to start with a thing that I missed somehow in all of this that I just discovered a couple days ago, which is that apparently, in addition to all of the other absolutely batshit loco shit that Bobby Kotick did, not encouraging, that's not fair, hiding and protecting sexual assaulters, like absolutely just tanking some of the best possible IPs of all time. He also apparently threatened one of his employees with murder. Like legit said, sent a text message to them saying, like, I'm going to have you killed. Like crazy shit. So that's a real thing. I don't know how to react to that. Cannon, do you?
I mean, wow. Like I don't have enough context to it, but you should never send that to anybody in written form. Like if you're gonna say it, at least do it like in a way that they can't prove that you said it. like come on. Like that's 101, right?
I love
you don't
Gannon's
the paper trail.
I love how Gannon's take isn't don't threaten to kill your employees. It is instead don't leave a paper trail.
No, but in all seriousness, that's really messed up. Like it's just so much has come out obviously over the years, and now that people are no longer scared of retaliation, we're like seeing more and more come out. I mean, the whole this past weekend, it was Andy Belford on Twitter, like essentially came out and was like, we told them not to, like, that we were going to get review bombed for Overwatch 2 on Steam. Please don't do this. Like, give us more time. Let us have the resources to not let this happen. And they essentially railroaded into it. And then the game got review bombed on Steam. And it caused a lot of problems for the team. And just seeing how like people like Jeff Kaplan used to fight for their teams to like protect them from the shit that it was happening there. I'm hoping people like that have a chance to rise into leadership and hopefully take over some of the space that's been left by Bobby, and that we can see some positive change and get rid of kind of this old school mentality of the C-suite person being like a god in the company, which is the way it seems like Kotick ran his companies. So
yeah, that's true. I just real quick to go back to what you said, I take exception with calling what happened to Overwatch 2 on Steam review bombing. Review bombing to me is when there's a concerted effort of a community to like go out of their way to leave negative reviews on a game because of something that they don't agree with around the game. Like Last of Us Part 2 was review bombed by a bunch of people who didn't want there to be like the lesbian relationships and like that sort of shit, right? It was a whole bunch of homophobes who didn't play the game, who went ahead and said like, "Hey, I'm going to be negative towards this game, even though I haven't played it, because there's a thing in there that I don't give a shit about, that I disagree with." And in that case, that's review bombing. But to me, if you have a legitimate complaint with a game and you are not like, oh, I'm this whole huge group of people like the homophobes previously mentioned, and I have a legitimate gripe with the game, I don't think that's review bombing. I think that's just Overwatch 2 is going to get a lot of bad reviews because we made a shitty game with shitty shitty monetization. It's not just the microtransaction. All of the monetization in that game is shitty. I don't think it's fair to say that that's a game that's review bombed. I think it's just a game that got a bunch of bad reviews because you did bad things, right? And if reports are to be believed, a lot of those bad things came directly from Bobby Kotick saying bad shit and telling them to do bad things, right? Not bad from a moral stance necessarily, but just bad like from a bad, like, this is bad. I don't like this. It's a poor choice. Bobby Kotick wanted to do it though, and he's our golden god, and so we have to do it, right? So I don't think it's fair to say that the game's got review bombed. I do think it's fair to say that he was a piece of shit manager, and because he was a bad manager, he didn't give his team members the resources necessary to do their jobs effectively, right? And we've seen that all over the place. Like Bethesda did that recently when it comes to Starfield reviews, where they were like, hey, Starfield's getting bad reviews on Steam. What are we going to do? Oh, we're going to go on there and tell people that they're playing it wrong, right? Like, that's another way to just completely fuck up customer support. So I don't think it's fair to say that it was review bombed. I think it's fair to say that it just got a bunch of bad reviews because it deserved them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said. The game, the monetization, all the things that have happened with it have been definitely a bad experience. I was mainly quoting what the tweet said. The tweet said that they were review bombed.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with the statement that they were review bombed, because they did make a bunch of really bad decisions with that game. And people were upset, and as they should be. Really, I mean, I think the most important question for all of our listeners when it comes to Bobby Kotick leaving is, who is Dale's number one nemesis going to be now? I think that's an important question in gaming. Like, Bobby Kotick has been your number one nemesis for a long time. And like, you thrive on hate. Like, your life is led in a way that just breeds hate. So I need to know who is the hate going to be directed towards? Because if it's not Bobby, I'm a little concerned for myself and the people that I care about.
You said that, and I immediately got a mental image of my tombstone that just said Dale Adamak, birth date to death date, thrived on hate. Like, shit's ridiculous. No, I don't know who's going to be my new nemesis. I'm sure the shittiest part about it is I'm sure it's not going to take long for one to make themselves apparent. Like, there's a bunch of dumb, bad, evil motherfuckers out there, and one of them's gonna piss me off sooner rather than later, and so that's what's gonna happen there. Shit's ridiculous that it's that true, but it is 100% that true. Man, I don't know. Here's the worst part about Bobby Kotick leaving now is I don't even get the joy of like, oh, Diablo 4 is coming out and I'm going to get to play it with all my friends, because it already came out. Everyone but Brody has stopped playing it because the monetization is so bad and because the gameplay is so rough and all of that. So I don't know. Maybe I'll get to play Diablo 4 when the expansion releases, if that's good. Like,
I'll play Diablo 4 with you, buddy.
Yeah, but do I even want to invest the time or the money into it right now? Like, it's not a very good game from what everyone said. Am I wrong?
True. This is true. Season 2 was better. The main frustration, at least for Mel and I, and the ones that we've shared, is that the expansion and the pricing and who knows what that's all going to be and how they're already sharing that information. So who knows?
Yeah,
who knows? I do hope that you get a chance to play at least a little bit, because it was fun.
Like, once I get back to a computer and I'm looking to play multiplayer games, am I going to pick Diablo 4 or am I going to pick like Lethal Company or whatever the new flavor of the month is, right? Like, Lethal Company looks like it's a blast to play. It looks like it's a ton of fun with everybody like getting together. That sounds way more fun than Diablo 4. So I completely missed that boat. I sure as hell am not going to play Diablo Immortal. Like, why the hell would I do that? So it's like, I don't know, maybe Bobby Kotick being there and me boycotting Activision Blizzard was a blessing, because it seems like I just missed a bunch of shitty games.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. What about you? How do you feel about the fact that you were only like 3 or 4 months early on predicting when Bobby Kotick was going to leave?
I mean, I still feel like a fool, especially now that it was that much closer. Like, I could have waited. And maybe saved the $60 or whatever it was for D4.
Or at least made sure it didn't go directly into Bobby Kotick's severance package.
Yeah, I mean, only a part of it did, right?
No,
I have to tell myself.
they specifically took all of your dollars.
My account, my BattleNet account is linked directly to Bobby Kotick's paid check.
Yes, there's a fucking routing number there, and that's all there is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's that's definitely a bummer. I'm hoping, like you said, that I mean, everyone loves Phil Spencer. I'm hoping that Phil Spencer stays around to at least correct some of the stuff at Blizzard before. I mean, he's getting up there. Like, who knows when he's going to retire? And like, I'm concerned about joining the Microsoft conglomerate, and who knows what happens with Blizzard. I mean, I've talked about being a Capcom fanboy, but before I was a Capcom fanboy, I was a Blizzard nut for most of my life growing up. Like, that was, if I owned a game, it was Blizzard, because I either it was when my cousins were playing, or when I was on Mac, it was one of the few like Blizzard was one of the few companies that was putting things both on Mac and on PC.
Yep.
Which was awesome as a Mac user. And I'm just hoping that we can see a return to form. I mean, obviously some of those great people have left to Blizzard, and I don't know if that'll ever happen. And studios like Blizzard North are gone, so there's no real hope there. But they gotta hold some sort of spark that maybe we'll get StarCraft Ghost. Maybe we'll get StarCraft Ghost. Maybe Bobby was the only reason I haven't had StarCraft Ghost. That's what, you know what? That's my new narrative. Bobby Kotick personally was saying no StarCraft Ghost.
Oh man, it is really sad that Blizzard was putting out just banger after banger for like 2 decades. And then they just, like, a company bought the name and the goodwill and was able to just drive it into the ground in the name of shareholder profits. Shit's ridiculous. Shit's absolutely ridiculous. Because you're 100% correct. For a good long while there, everything that Blizzard made was gold. If it had Blizzard attached to it, it was like, this is flawless. So absolutely ridiculous. Also, just another side note on that. I don't want anyone to think that I'm not conflicted here, because I still, despite the fact that Bobby Kotick is gone, I still believe that Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard, King, Roblox, whatever else the fuck they bought in that huge ass merger, is bad for consumers. Like, it is not good for consumers to have all of these different IPs, all of these different games that people know and love tied up into a single company. It is, at the very least, going to support anti-competitive behavior, and most likely going to result in some anti-consumerist behavior as well. And so this is not a good thing that it has happened. The only good thing that has come of this is that Bobby Kotick is now a jobless bum. Granted, he's a jobless bum with more money than I'll ever see, but he is a jobless bum. And that's the only good thing about this. So, yeah, exciting stuff. Anyway. Oh God. Let's move on to another bad thing for the games industry, but not necessarily a bad thing for you and I. And that is 2023 had a ton of different gaming leaks that happened that we never really talked too much about. And so I wanted to go back and talk about some of those leaks, what we thought about them, what we feel the effect will be on the games industry, and that sort of thing. So just real quick, before we dive into any of the details, what's your thoughts on leaks in general?
So personally, I generally dislike leaks as a whole, right? I think that people work really hard to come up with something great, or at least what we hope to is great. And if things are leaked, it becomes like all that hard work, all that effort, it's taken away from the people who have invested their time and their money and their finances and their resources and everything into to create something. And I think that they should be able to share that in the way that they want to share it. Um, I think that being able to lead with your best foot forward is always like the right thing. Like it gives everyone the best chance to have the best first impression. And I think that when though that opportunity is taken away, I mean, it's really it really makes it so that something that could have been special is no longer special for the people who put the time and effort into it. It's now special for the person who leaked it, who may have no actual thing in the process other than their clout chasing or they want to do that. Now that being said, this is for like video game leaks. I think that there are times when leaks are important if things like whistleblowing or things like that
Right.
they're not the same thing at all, right?
Yeah.
If someone is breaking something like that because they're doing the right thing to share something with others, I definitely do that. But like when we talk about some of the things in here, like people showcasing a game before it's out, like you know me, I hate spoilers, right? And I can avoid spoilers because there's generally a amount of things are not allowed to be reviewed or things are allowed to be shared until a list like a date comes and
Yeah.
we're able to kind of open the gates on that stuff. And I can know when that stuff is because it's usually right before a game and I can kind of tailor what I'm looking at beforehand. But then if you're just like scrolling through the internet and you're like, oh, here's Breath of the Wild and people are showing, or here's Tears of the Kingdom and people are showing me builds and the game's not even out yet. I wasn't expecting to be able to see this because the review period isn't out yet. Like that's where some of the frustration is for me.
Yeah, that
Then
review embargo is pretty important to be able to avoid spoilers. That's a good call. I hadn't even considered that. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, good call.
No. So that's kind of my overall take. Is I'm generally not a fan of leaks as a whole.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I agree. And I think your distinction about video game leaks versus like real life leaks, like government leaks and that sort of shit, I think that that's an important distinction to make. I am only talking about video game leaks here. But in general, I agree with you. I think that video game leaks usually harm the product that is there. I think hype has become a problem in video games. I think the hype cycle of video games is an issue in the way that people will get so hyped for a game that they're like, I cannot wait for this game to be here. It's all I want to think about and all I want to play. When there's like, I don't know, 20 other awesome games that they likely have skipped or haven't played yet, that sort of thing. And on one hand, like anticipation, excitement is fine. But on the other hand, like it becomes obsessive. And the video game industry as a whole tends to rely on that sort of stuff as marketing, which is really, really dangerous. When you look at games that come out, or games that are slated to come out, but then get canceled because there aren't enough wish lists on Steam, there aren't enough pre-orders, like that sort of thing. That's a dangerous place for the industry to be in. And it manufactures this hype cycle that causes people to freak out about video games and do things like, I don't know, hack Rockstar's servers to figure out when the fuck the next GTA is coming out. It paints a target on them for these, for lack of a better term, zealots, right? Now, I think all of that you said is true when leaks happen because of this hype cycle. That said, there is another form of leak that sometimes happens with video games where a video game is leaked and it shows that video game is not what has been represented in the marketing materials, in the pre-release trailers, in the teasers, that sort of thing, where it's shit like, I don't know, I'm just going to pick on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, where it's like they leaked a bunch of internal gameplay that showed a shark using a sniper rifle. And it's like, what the fuck is this? Why is this game Destiny Light but with Harley Quinn? Like, what is going on here? This is not what it was made out to look like. This is not what it was made out to show. People are pre-ordering this game on false pretenses, you know? And we've talked about my problems with pre-orders in the past, but realistically, in those scenarios, and in those scenarios only, where a leak shows a game to be, what's the term I want to use here? Where a leak shows the other marketing materials to be disingenuous, those are the leaks I can get behind. In much the same way as we talked about, like, whistleblowers, that sort of thing. Those are kind of people who are whistleblowing on the games industry. Obviously, it's a lot lower impact, that sort of thing. But I can get, anytime somebody is like, hey, there is a lie here and I'm going to expose this lie, that's a leak I can get behind, right? But I do agree that, like Mario Wonder being leaked a couple of weeks early, that's just shitty. Nobody at Nintendo was like, hey, man, we're going to lie about Mario Wonder. Like, Nintendo is, I don't know if Nintendo is even capable of lying, right? Like, they're definitely not capable of figuring out how to use the internet. They might not be capable of deception.
Honestly, and Nintendo was the worst company to do it to, because, like, how much backlash happened because of the Tears of the Kingdom one? Like, they shut down some, like, long-standing, like, I mean, not saying that piracy is something that I'm advocating for, but like emulators and like other things that had been out there for a long time that were just kind of left to do on their own. Those things all got, like, Nintendo was like, you guys fucked with us, and they just came hard for a bunch of other things, which, like, it was such a bad idea to go after, like, one of the most litigious video game companies out there.
Yeah, that's true. They're not capable of lying, but they're certainly capable of suing. They'll sue anybody. Watch out if you're on YouTube and you're doing a Let's Play of their game. They'll come after you. Shit's wild in the streets. Yeah, really, really good point. That said, the other thing that leaks do is they can sometimes contribute to that hype cycle, you know, where it's like, all right, GTA 6, like, early build leaks, and now people are like, oh man, GTA 6 is further along than I thought. Or, oh no, GTA 6 is so much further behind than I thought, right? Because they don't realize how video game development fucking works or whatever. And so I think that that's just, it's just a whole big shitty cycle, you know? I don't know. What are your thoughts? What do you got?
I just, the cases that have happened, like and they're going after these people real hard. I mean, what wasn't the GTA 6 person? He got
confined
12, to a mental hospital.
Years in prison.
Yeah, no, GTA 6. I thought he got lifetime in like a mental hospital.
Oh,
you're thinking of the other one who got 12 years.
Was that the Sony one?
I think that maybe that was the Sony one. I'm trying to look. Well, we'll look at that and we'll come back at this.
A life sentence in a hospital prison awaits Aaron Cortage, the 18-year-old hacker who leaked Grand Theft Auto 6 footage online. Yeah. 12 years was the Starfield guy.
Starfield, yep.
Yeah.
Darren Harris.
A life sentence?
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
Wild.
Yeah, I mean that may be a little much.
It's pixels, guys.
Yeah, that may be a little much.
Jesus.
But I mean, that's a lot of money. There's a lot of money behind these games at this point. Like these like people are gonna go after them. The Destiny had their big like leaker get all hit. I don't remember his name, but he leaked a bunch of Destiny stuff, which I mean, if anyone's going to leak, let's just find out the ending of Destiny, and so everyone can move on. That's a whistle blow on the company for making a bad game. No, I definitely understand what you're saying about the hype thing, and what's a problem is some of these ones, like, we didn't even talk about leaks that are like ransomware stuff. Like, there was some ransomware ones. Was it Insomnia that had ransomware?
Yeah, dude, that one's the worst because it wasn't just like, hey, we've got all of your like documents about games that are coming out, pay us. It was also like, hey, we have information about your employees, pay us. Like, obviously those people are pieces of shit, right? Like, anytime you are hacking for personal gain, you're probably a piece of shit. But if you are threatening individuals with like releasing documents about them, you are just an absolute butthole. Like, put your hands in the garbage disposal. Like, you should not be allowed to type anymore. Oh God, you're the worst of the worst. You're the Dan of people.
Oh my goodness, that's not fair to Dan.
No, it's not, but it was funny.
It was funny.
It's especially funny because it implies that Dan is not a person. Oh God. Anyway, yeah, you're like, if you are hacking and releasing poor developers' names, like, you're doing it wrong. Your priorities are fucked.
Yeah. I don't really have much else to say on it other than I think that a lot of this is shitty. Like, I loved sitting in Discord during the Game Awards and finding out about games with my friends because I knew that's when I was going to find out about it.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, this is an event where I'm going to find out about new stuff and I get to experience it with my friends. And like, the company's getting to put their best foot forward. I do understand though, like, because like you said, the Suicide Squad thing of like, they've made changes because of it. Like, but it feels like that's few and far between.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
It's not like the norm. It's not like, oh, we found out about Cyberpunk 2077 and they fixed it before it came out. Or like No Man's Sky, we found out about it and they fixed it before it came out. Like,
no, it took years. It's basically Suicide Squad and Sonic the Hedgehog's teeth.
The movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the teeth, it was the whole body. It was
it was the whole everything.
Creepy. It was creepy.
Yeah, that's a good call. Dude, you're right. It does kind of feel like leaks are like telling someone like what's in a present before they even know they're getting a present.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good thought. I'd love to hear your thoughts though. If you're listening to this and you're like, hey, no, I love leaks for X reason. Like, we're just two dudes. It's not like we're like leak experts or whatever. Like, hit us up in the Discord. Tell us why you love leaks. Or if you agree with us and you think leaks are bad, but maybe you have a different reasoning, hit us up. Let us know. I'd love to know. All right. So our next question, obviously, pulling back the curtain, Gannon and I are recording this on the 31st. So we are thinking heavily about next year. And this question is sponsored by Leap Years. Leap Years wanted me to say, we know existence is pain, so here's a little bit more of it. Try Leap Years. Anyway, if you can go back in time to the beginning of 2023 and warn yourself of a few things, what would those things be? I'll go first here because apparently that killed Gannon. So I'm going to say make sure that we get our house started a little bit earlier, like communicate better with our architect and that sort of shit so that it can actually be done this year, because I'm going into February still not knowing exactly when I'm going to be back in my house. That's fucking crazy. And could have been avoided if I would have been a little bit more persistent. Maybe. I don't know. My wife will tell a different story. But I think that I probably could have been a better communicator there. And then my second one is an ultra minor thing, but don't buy the Battle Pass in Honkai Star Rail because you'll stop playing it 1 week later. Yeah. Like there's that.
I feel that so much. One of mine is definitely just don't play MiHoYo games. Ganon, you have a gambling problem. You do it already with Lorcana. You do it with everything that has some sort of loot box. Just don't do it. Save yourself the money. Don't do it. Don't do it, please. We talked about my regret of going into D4, waiting for Bobby Kotick. I really wish I had sold my stock in Ocean Gate earlier this year so that it didn't plummet to the bottom. It sunk pretty hard. I should have sold that stock. I
forgot about Ocean Gate, man.
And then I think for me, the last one would be invest in pharmaceuticals because you've been sick for so long in 2023. It probably would have helped to have an inside track to get maybe some experimental meds so that I can stop being sick, because fuck this. It's been like, it felt like a quarter of my year I've been just sick. And
now,
have
you put ivermectin up your butt yet? Because I hear that helps.
You know, I need to talk to Aaron Rodgers. Maybe he can let me know what's going on. All right.
Oh, God. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, man. Dude, I forgot about that stupid submarine that everyone was obsessed with for like a week. Oh, God. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
How could you ever forget about Titan submarine, Titanic? Oh, it was just... It's beautiful. It was a beautiful time in our life. It's the reason I won't make it into heaven.
How are you going to name your shit Titanic also? Like, ugh, whatever. I know that's the lukewarmest take of all time, but yeah. I have already insulted Dan badly, but, you know, fuck you.
Oh, poor Dan.
Yeah. I love him, but fuck him. All right. You got anything else to say about any of these topics here?
No, not really. Maybe just if someone's gonna leak something, leak some, I don't know, leak some Monster Hunter dates for me so I can actually know when they are.
Isn't it next? No, not next year. It's 2025.
I know. But that's my other biggest regret of the year was I invested too much time thinking that it was going to be in 2024.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Yeah. I just want to say that if you see Bobby Kotick, it's okay to punch him. You're allowed to, legally.
That's not true.
Him and Nazis.
SuperOK is not responsible. We are not. Although, you know what? I've learned that you can tell people to cause an insurrection and you won't get in trouble. So
yeah, it's fine. Punch that guy. If you see him, he's got a very punchable face. All right. Outside of that, tell the people where you can be found.
I'm in the Discord. Please don't leak anything there. There's already enough things that have been leaked in Discord this year. So.
All right. I'm also in the Discord and on Blue Sky as a 20-sided ninja. Go. You know what? Here's one thing that I would recommend. Get on Blue Sky. It's good. It's like Twitter, but without Nazis. So if you need an invite, hit me up. I will send one to you. Also, huge thank you to our Patreons. We couldn't do this without you. You guys are amazing. And another big thanks to Zando for editing all of our episodes. This one's going to be a bear. Sorry, bud. All right. Beyond that, if you're still listening, thanks for listening. Hope you have a super okay day. Tell everybody goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.